What's up everybody, welcome to this video. In this video, I'm gonna talk about our saddle hunting pros and cons. Our whole team's been saddle hunting now for about 4 or 5 years. And we've kind of ran through and figured out exactly what we like, what we don't like, and why you would want to saddle hunt, why you wouldn't want to saddle hunt. So that's what we're pretty much gonna cover in today's video. But if you do me a huge favor, before we jump into the video, hit that like and subscribe below. If you're feeling really helpful, hit that bell for notifications. You know, pretty much every time we upload, the more you can watch, share, the better. I mean, we're really trying to bring you a ton of content this year. We've been doing 2 videos every week. So just trying to keep that information flowing. We've also been releasing podcast episodes every single week. Also have the link to that below. You know, we're trying to bring a whole bunch of education to that and a lot of different kind of topics to that as well. So now let's jump into today's video of saddle hunting pros and cons. So the first saddle hunting pro is going to be the lightweight and mobility of a saddle. That's definitely the #1 why you'd want to get a saddle. So if you own a farm and you got your set spots, you know, you've got a handful of spots, maybe you got a little piece of private land, you know, I'm not saying saddle hunting is not for you. I'm just saying I could understand why you wouldn't want to do it. But for us, our team, we have got a mix of private by permission, we've got a mix of public, and we're kind of bouncing all over the place. So it's very rare that we're going into a tree that's already set up, and if we are, we've just got a handful of them. So we're going into spots all the time. And before we hunted at tree stands, we were hanging and hunting, and it can get to be heavy. So like this, like literally, I'm only obviously like a couple feet off the ground just for the sake of the video, but I'm in the trophy line Hyperlight platform, the Hyperlight sticks, and the Hyperlight is, I mean, the absolute lightest stuff out there, and it's unbelievable. I got a link in the description to everything from Trophy Line, but pretty much, I mean, we can put the platform and sticks on our pack and it honestly feels like there's nothing there. You know, obviously it's just very lightweight. So that's definitely the #1 saddle hunting pro and #1 reason why I'd recommend a saddle hunt. The #2 pro is, I would say, is the maneuverability and your shot radius. So when you're in a tree stand, you know, think about if you're sitting in a stand or standing, you're gonna shoot to your left. If you wanna shoot to your right, you're gonna stand up, turns, a lot of movement. To shoot back behind you, it can be really difficult. In a saddle, I think if you know what you're doing, if you practice enough, you can shoot 360 around the tree. So obviously the way I'm set up now, strong side, shooting all over here. If I wanna shoot back to my left, all I do is boom like that. I lean up on the tree. And then we've got, you know, we always have our top step even with our platform. So now I can rotate all the way around and shoot all the way back like this if I needed, which you're covering that whole entire spectrum. Now if I want to shoot in front of me, I can go here, 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 come around. And there's different ways where if you want to shoot at your, say 1, 2, 3 o'clock, everyone does it different. Like team member Luke Ellison loves to do the seatbelt method. I love to like come all the way around the tree because like typically I'll have a camera right here filming, and then I can come around the tree. I can use my hip, come all the way around, and it's just, I mean, you can shoot literally 360 degrees out of a saddle. And one of the reasons that I think saddle hunting is great, and that's definitely a good pro. Another thing that I want to talk about, and this kind of goes hand in hand with the lightweight and mobility, is, you know, if you are someone who likes to hang and hunt with tree stands, I think hanging and hunt with a saddle is a lot quicker. Being lightweight is definitely a part of that. But when you get a good system and you've got hooks on your saddle and you don't have to climb up and down, you can go one trip up the tree, get everything set up. And when you have a system down, it goes really, really fast. And I think that's something that you should really consider. The next thing I want to talk about is concealment. When you're in a tree stand, you're kind of out a little bit, you know what I mean? And I feel like it's easier to get picked off. Where like in a saddle, you can always, especially if you're not filming, you can always place yourself between the deer. So, you know, like right now when I film, I set up to shoot to my left and everything. But if I didn't film and if you don't film, I would always set up where I think the most likely shot opportunity is gonna be out in front of me, because then you can swing around. But what you can do is if a deer's coming, you can stay right behind the tree, And then when you get ready to shoot, you can swing out and make the shot. And say you're like this and the deer's coming from your left and you kind of catch movement. Well, now you can kind of come around the tree, put the tree between you and the deer. They come through, maybe it's not a deer you want to shoot. They go by, boom, you get back to position. So I like that because you can always put the tree between you and the deer. And I think that gives you a really big advantage. The fifth and last pro that I want to talk about is the fact that you can honestly get into any tree. And I think you can pretty much get into anything. We've saddle hunted out of giant popples. We've saddle hunted out of cedar trees. I mean, team member Caleb Comstock this year in North Dakota literally hunted out of a tree like this big, a sapling like a foot off the ground. And I just didn't think, and it was super cool setup. Luke in North Dakota this year killed out of a funky little trashy tree. It just allows you to get into any tree, you know. With a hang-on stand, they got to be a little bit bigger, and it's just a little bit, you know, you got to have a little bit more. And then obviously with other stands like a ladder stand or a climber, you got to have perfect setups. So that's something that I really think is important. And those are kind of my 5 pros. And now we're going to jump into some of the cons of saddle hunting, because it's like with anything, there's definitely a few cons. All right, number 1 con is definitely going to be comfortability. Now, I do think saddles are comfortable. The problem is if you want to sit all day, it can be tough on your hips, on your back, and sometimes a tree stand's nice to do that. You know, just generally speaking, a nice big hang-on stand or a ladder stand is gonna be more comfy than a saddle. It just is. You've got your pros and your cons, but that's definitely a con. And kind of hand in hand with that is another con, is hunting all day. So obviously we're talking the rut, but when hunting dark to dark in a saddle, it can wear on you. It wears on me. I did it, you know, 5 days in a row in Nebraska this year, but you got to make sure you got your back bend, your knee pads, you got to be able to adjust positions, because it can be kind of a grind. So with a nice comfy tree stand, that makes that makes all day sits in the rut that much more enjoyable. Another thing is it's a lot harder to do in the cold. So if you're saddle hunting, I mean, I almost killed a buck this year in negative 30 degrees out of a saddle, but just the whole process is definitely harder. You know, even that one was a little bit pre-hung, but you're messing with a lot of stuff, and it just can be a little bit more tough to do. And if it's really cold, you know, I don't mind having a good stand just to climb up into, have everything ready, and all you gotta do is do one attachment of your carabiner, and that makes it pretty simple. And then again, kind of similar with that is when you're saddle hunting, you don't generally have presets. Now we'll have a couple presets here and there, but with stands, you're a lot of times having presets. And so with saddle hunting, you're running and gunning a lot. And that can be viewed as a con because some people just want that easiness of getting to a tree, climbing up, and that's that. Whereas with a saddle, oftentimes the reason you're doing it is because you're running and gunning a lot, but that can also be looked at upon as a con, is that oftentimes you're not going to have them preset. So, all right, the last con that I want to cover is talking about practice. With a tree stand, you can climb up, shoot, good to go. Like, it's just not as much that goes into it. Whereas with the saddle, you need to practice. And if you don't practice, I wouldn't recommend hunting out of one. So with the saddle, you know, even when we first did it, I was like thrown off. It felt weird. I was like, man, I need to practice. And you do need to practice. So with a saddle, you got to practice quite a bit. You have to practice setting it up. I'd recommend practice setting it up in the dark. I'd recommend shooting out of it because it's just a whole different game. You know, you're not just like standing up like you would in a stand or seated. It's just a lot different angles, positions, feeling, and knowing exactly how that feels and being able to be comfortable in a saddle is definitely important. So that could definitely be considered a con. So those are my 5 pros, my 5 cons of saddle hunting. Do you have any pros or cons of your own that I didn't include? You know, drop them in the comments below. Love to get a discussion going with you guys talking about that. And I appreciate you watching, and we'll see you here in the next video.